Baseball isn't just numbers, numbers, numbers.
This game is not being played on computers.
You don't do that with a bunch of statistical gimmicks.
You don't put a team together with a computer.
We're talking weighted runs created plus,
expected WOBA,
his sweet spot rate,
defensive runs above average,
average exit velocity,
barrel rate,
xFIP,
BABIP,
SIERA.
We are above replacement radio. And welcome to Above Replacement Radio, where we're talking baseball kind of whenever. I'm your host, Chris Gianta. Over there on the other side of the screen is Daniel Curran. How you doing, Daniel?
Chris, I'm doing very well today. This is our first show of the month of March in 2025. And you know what that means? That means baseball happens this month for real this time. We said it, people said it on February 1st, but we all know that didn't count. But now it's for real. This is the baseball month. It is March 3rd as we are recording this. We are 3.5 weeks away from opening day. Thank God that cannot get here any sooner. Because yeah, spring. I've already reached the point of spring training where it's like, you know, I'm watching for individuals. Like I'm picking out who's starting. I'm looking at who's in lineups, and I'll check a couple box scores. I'm not able to watch a ton of games because I'm usually at work until 6:30, so I can't see any of the 1 or 3 o'clock games. So you know, it's on the individual basis, but that's, you know, even that's kind of, you know, running its course right now. So I'm ready to get to the start of the season, but we do have a few more things to get to before then. Some of them will be uncovered today. We have our 4th division preview talking about the National League East, and we have the first wave of the unveiling of the 2nd annual Curran and Gianta 50s, which is a highly anticipated off-season event. It's kind of the culmination of hours upon hours of research, dozens of baseball savant searches, several different page views on several different players, a lot of evaluations, and it all leads to this. And we are getting to the first wave of those unveilings today with our players 50 through 26 for the 2025 season.
Yeah, and yeah, as a prelude into that, we're going to do a little tiny review of, where our list kind of stacked up against MLB Network's last year. And I think I'm going to add in how it compared to Foolish Bailey, who is opinion, we kind of overlap in opinion a lot with him. But, he has a big top 50 out, and I think a lot of people enjoy that. And, I think it would be fun to see where our lists stack up compared to his, because if his are better, I'm willing to accept that. But
not MLB Network.
MLB Network,
not the state-run media.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, using kind of trying to go a little bit unbiased there, but we'll get into that a little bit later. Because first, we're previewing the National League East. We've previewed half the divisions already. If you would like to see the AL East, NL West, or AL Central be previewed, check out our past 3 episodes, because that is past 3 full episodes, because we've previewed all those divisions. So if your favorite team's in there and you're wondering who we're watching on that team, go to make sure to check out episodes 345, 346, and 347. But yeah, we have the NL East to preview. Anything more before we get into our first team?
No, let's do it.
Yeah, so if you don't know about the division previews, we go team by team, go over their additions, subtractions. We point out one player to watch, usually under the radar, maybe a younger guy we expect to break out, and then we ask each other a question about some area of the team or some player we're concerned about with each team, and we go from bottom to top. So this week, since we're doing the NL East, we start with the Marlins, who went 62-100 and finished last in the National League East last year. They lost Jesus Luzardo, Jake Berger, Vidal Brujan, and Sixto Sanchez. And they added Cal Quantrill. That's pretty much it.
Matt Mervis, I believe they added.
Who did they add?
Matt Mervis from the Cubs in the Brujan trade.
Yeah, he's mostly been in the minor leagues in his professional career, right?
Yes, but he is a prospect and could maybe split some time at first with Davis and De Los Santos by the end of the season.
Yeah, so Matt Mervis, I mean, yeah, he's probably going to get playing time. So they added Kyle Quantrill and Matt Mervis. Who is your Marlins player to watch?
Chris, before I get into this, I'm curious, what was your reaction to looking at this team on the roster resource for the first time?
Yeah, it's just I was like looking, I kept looking. I'm happy I found something I can at least hang some of a hat on, but man, yeah, it is desolate.
I don't think I've ever been more excited to see the outcome for a team that I don't think is going to be good because like what is this team? Who are they? I don't know. Nobody really knows. I don't think they'll be good, but like what kind of conversations are we having about this team in November? Because this is a very young team. It's a very inexperienced team. A lot of guys with very limited service time are going to be getting a lot of playing time, including the Fangraphs roster resource depth chart projected cleanup hitter, Jonah Bride, who is my
Mm.
player to watch. He spent some time on the A's the last couple of years. Also was on the Marlins very briefly last year. Swung it pretty well, but I'm looking more at the underlying stuff as per usual. He was one of the most patient hitters in all of baseball last year. He swung at just 38.2% of all pitches he saw last year, which was tied for the fifth lowest swing rate among the 323 hitters with at least 1,000 total pitches seen. The Marlins have had a lot of issues in previous years with just having a lot of free swingers, a lot of guys that chase a lot of guys that don't work counts a lot. And Jonah Bride, I think, is a very potentially refreshing face to see in the middle of that order, albeit, certainly a lot to improve on. But I'm still pretty excited. He had a 16.7%. I didn't even write that in. A whiff rate, a 16.7% whiff rate last year, a 23.9% chase rate, an 11% walk rate, and therefore a 369 on base percentage from July 25th through the end of last season, which ranked tied for 19th among the 154 qualifiers in that span. But more importantly, this is the classic Daniel Curran analysis. This is the bread and butter of what I like to see in a player. 44% of his batted balls last year were hit to the pull side, including 42.9% of his fly balls. From July 25th through the end of last season, he had a 45% pull rate on fly balls, and that was tied with Isaac Paredes as the 13th highest among the 225 hitters with at least 25 fly balls hit in that span. So he could go pull for pull with the best of them, and that's what he did down the stretch last season. I mean, tied with Isaac Paredes on pull rate on fly balls should tell you pretty much everything you need to know. I'm interested to see how many of those fly balls can leave the park in Lone Depot Park. It's obviously one of the deeper ballparks, but as I always say, if you hit it in the air enough and you pull it enough, you'll find your way into good results enough of the time. And I think the Marlins are looking for anything like that this year. So I'm very interested to see if Jonah Bride can make himself into that player this coming season.
Yeah, that's a good player to watch, good analysis. And yeah, with if you tie Isaac Paredes in, pulled fly ball rate, it's the equivalent on the pulled fly ball rate scale as like tying Aaron Judge and slugging. It's
Yeah.
it's it's basically the same, he's Isaac Paredes is the standard bearer in that category. Um, my player to watch is someone I didn't really expect to highlight, but I found some cool improvements that he had from 2023 to 2024, and I'm hoping he can kind of build on them. I'm talking about Ryan Weathers. Ryan Weathers is heading into his age 25 season, and he was the seventh overall draft pick in the 2018 MLB draft. And it actually kind of surprised me when I saw his age because he's been in the league since 2021. It's just the Padres brought him up really, really early, and perhaps maybe a little bit earlier than they should have because he hasn't had exactly the best start to his MLB career, but he made some improvements last year and had a decent season for himself. He put up a 3.63 ERA, 125 ERA plus, 4.11 FIP, and 4.20 expected ERA in 86 and two-thirds innings pitched last year. From 2023 to 2024, his strikeout rate went from 17% to 22%. Walk rate went from 11.3% to 6.5%. So his strikeout minus walk rate went from 5% to 15%. And 15% strikeout minus walk rate is above league average. Also, his whiff rate went from 23.6% to 26.1%, and his chase rate went from 21% to 27%. Out of 226 pitchers to qualify for year-to-year changes last year, Ryan Weathers had the 11th best year-to-year change in strikeout rate, 7th best change in walk rate, and 6th best change in chase rate. So yeah, I mean, he was one of the most improved pitchers of last year. Granted, he wasn't, anything close to a Cy Young candidate, and he only pitched 86 and two-thirds innings, but that's something optimistic to be about from a 25-year-old left-hander who was once a seventh overall draft pick out of high school, which is you know, especially at that point, that's something to, really hang your hat on. So it seems like he's kind of coming to form and coming into what he was supposed to be. And, hoping he can continue that for this year. And, if I were to put a goal on him to kind of satisfy my my evaluation or just kind of outlook for him. I would like for him to kind of maintain a 120 ERA plus in 25 plus starts. He had a 125 ERA plus last year, but only in 16 starts. If he has a bigger role this year, I expect him to get more starts. So if he just maintains that production on the run prevention side, I think that's a very satisfactory season for him. So yeah, now on to questions.
I forgot to say what I wanted to see out of my players for this entire division, so I'm gonna have to make them all up on the spot.
That's what I've been
Um,
doing.
I would say honestly, I would like to see Jonah Bride lead this team in home runs. Uh, Now that doesn't really get into how many home runs he's going to hit, but uh, I think if he can kind of establish himself as one of the better power bats in this lineup, because for what it's worth, I think they're probably going to trade Jesus Sanchez at some point this season. I think that's a pretty safe bet to make. I checked this, by the way. I believe they have 9 players left from the 2023 postseason roster.
That's wild.
Yeah. So
That is
like
insane.
Jesus Sanchez is like one of the, more long tenured players on this team. Um, Going into my question, this is a team that, it's the first year with a new manager with Clayton McCullough. It's what, like the second or third season with Peter Bendix. I don't remember how long he's been around, but not long enough to have really built a completely competitive team yet. I believe it was after 2022 when they got rid of Kim Ang, right? That
Um,
sounds right.
End of no, I think it was end of 2023, which was kind of crazy to think about.
Hang on. I can. Yeah, it was. It was after 2023. So it's the second season with Peter Bendix. This team is obviously in a very transitional phase. They're not making the playoffs this year. There's way too many other, serious competitive teams in the division. This team is all about finding its identity, finding out who the key players will be for the next great Marlins team. So that kind of translates into my question, which is who will lead this team in plate appearances this year?
Who will lead this team in plate appearances this year? That's a good question. Um, yeah, I'm looking at their projected lineup now. Um, and yeah, I'm, kind of just looking up and down. I kind of have to just dismiss the last three batters. I don't think Kyle Stowers, Dane Myers, or Nick Fortes will lead this team in plate appearances. So kind of looking elsewhere. Otto Lopez had 434 last year and actually was decent, especially on the defensive side. He put up 2.5 F4
He
without,
put up more WAR
qualifying.
than Luis Ariz after the trade.
That's pretty wild. This is stuff you're not going to hear about in the mainstream media. Um, but that's a fact. That's a real fact. Um, yeah. So yeah, trying to observe how many. Yeah, Jesus Sanchez had 537 last year, but I could easily see him like if he has any sort of a good start, I could see him getting traded because I feel like he doesn't have that much
As soon as
control
there's
left.
value attached to him,
Yes,
which there
exactly.
is now, but like they didn't
Right.
trade him.
Um, and then yeah, Connor Norby, I wouldn't be surprised if some good things come out of this year for him. Um, Honestly, I'll just go with their projected leadoff man because it kind of makes sense,
Yeah,
and I feel like he'll get starts and just stay there. So I'm gonna go with Xavier Edwards for
yeah.
most plate appearances on this team.
I think that's the safest bet. I mean, he played all right last year, looked like an interesting enough piece. And yeah, by default, if you're the leadoff batter, you're going to get the most plate appearances. So I think
Right.
that's probably the correct answer. But we will wait and see.
Yes, we will wait and see. My question, kind of a similar route, but just talking about some guys who have some semblance of potential for the team. Who will take a bigger step up this year, Connor Norby or Max Meyer?
Ooh, Connor Norby or Max Meyer. Norby looked interesting last year, if I remember correctly. Like his savant stuff is down, but like he's it was a very short sample, obviously. Max Meyer, I'm trying to remember what he did. So I did look into it. Interestingly, no mention of Sandy Alcantara from either of us in this segment. That's not
Yeah, he's a
very kind.
on for this
Um,
team, he's an ancient 29-year-old.
yeah. So Meyer, yeah, okay. There's a lot to improve on, but the ground ball rate was pretty nice. Even for a slider primary guy, that's interesting. Um, so between him and Connor Norby, I'll probably go with Meyer. Um,
hmm
just because I think naturally from two people that are trying to learn and become a little bit more experienced, I like the idea of pitching more than hitting in that ballpark.
uh-huh.
Um, so I will go with Max Meyer.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, that does it for the Marlins. And now we will move on to the Washington Nationals, who went 71 and 91 last year and finished fourth in the National League East. They lost Robert Garcia, Joey Gallo, Joey Meneses, Ildemaro Vargas, and Tanner Rainey, and they added Nathaniel Lowe, Josh Bell, Paul DeYoung, Ahmed Rosario, Josh Bell, Michael Soroka, Jorge Lopez, Colin Poche, and Lucas Sims. Um, and yeah, for my player to watch, maybe this is definitely one of my more higher profile guys, but maybe just to go against the grain with the Nationals because when you look at the Nationals, it's a lot of young guys with a lot of potential, and we could obviously see this team succeed. Um, not just in 2027 and 2026, but maybe even a little bit this year, because of some of those young guys, whether that be prospects or, some players who were in their second, third, fourth year in the MLB. But I'm going with a veteran who they just acquired and a guy who I put as the top as a number 10 first baseman in baseball for 2025. I'm talking about Nathaniel Lowe. And I think you put him as a player to watch, and I think he was one of your hits a few years ago,
He
right?
was 2022. He was my second best hit behind Stephen Kwan.
Yes, yes. So yeah, I'm hoping he can get back near that level. But just kind of an overview of Nathaniel Lowe. He was traded for Robert Garcia back in December. He's heading into his age 29 season. He has 2 years of control left with this team, and he ranks seventh among current first basemen in F4 over the last 2 years. And he has a 117 OPS plus and the third most outs above average among first basemen since the start of 2023. So he's very productive on both sides of the ball, um, uh, you know, everywhere. So he's been good the last couple years, but I think he has the potential to do even more. Part of that has to do with the fact that he was 82nd percentile in chase rate and 72nd percentile in whiff rate last year. And although he was 28th percentile and 46th percentile in barrel rate and average exit velocity, respectively, last year, he was 73rd percentile in bat speed. So, 73rd percentile in bat speed with below average barrel rates and average exit velocity, that just kind of tells me that he's not getting the most out of his swings when he does make contact, unfortunately. Along with that, he's only pulled 16.6% of his fly balls over the last 2 years. He's 3 years removed from putting up a 139 OPS plus, and that was a year where he had a much better pulled fly ball rate, average exit velocity, and barrel rate. So this is an unusual evaluation I would do for a player to watch because usually I'm talking about guys who already have it there underline wise, but with Lowe, I'm kind of looking at a deeper level. His bat speed's there. He's put together a really, really productive offensive season before, and I imagine his bat speed is at a similar level to where it was at that point. So with Lowe, I see someone with the ability to have a great season and just needs to kind of get the right application to get there. If he's pulling fly balls at an average rate this year and squaring up more balls and getting more out of getting more value out of his swings, which are already fast. He can be a really, really productive player. And my goal for him would just be a 130 OPS plus in a qualifying
Wow.
season this year. Um,
That is quite aggressive, I think. I mean, it's very doable, but like 130 is a big number. We're talking like what, 825 OPS in a
yeah, but
in a bad offensive season overall.
he's at 117 over the last 2 years, and
Yeah, very doable.
he was at 120 last year. So I think 130 is just that next level where he can get at.
Sure.
And he's done better. He's had a 139 OPS plus before. So yeah, that's what I'm going for there. Who's your Nationals player to watch?
Yeah, so the Nationals had a few starting pitchers last year, lefties especially, that piqued some interest throughout the year. Mackenzie Gore is kind of the default big one, but there was also Mitchell Parker, there was Jake Irvin, and there was my player to watch, which is DJ Hers, who is a again a left-handed starting pitcher with some really good strikeout stuff last year. 106 strikeouts in 88 and two-thirds innings pitched. And also, a lot of it coming from the four seam, which I think is very interesting. DJ Hurst threw his four seamer 54.2% of the time, which was the eighth highest among the 141 pitchers with at least 1,500 total pitches thrown. 58.6% of the four seamers that he threw had at least a foot of arm side movement, 12 inches of arm side movement. And that 58.6% rate of having that kind of movement on the four seamer ranked 11th among these 76 pitchers with at least 750 four seamers thrown. So he threw the four seam a lot, got a lot of good movement on it, especially, horizontally. That kind of threw hitters off a lot because his four seamer had a 30.5% whiff rate, which ranked fourth on that same list of 76 pitchers. It also ranked sixth in batting average expected batting average against at 194 and fifth in expected slugging against at 322. So for a guy that throws a four seam a lot, you're risking a lot of bad contact against it, but he actually limited it to a decent degree. Hers gave up 34 fly balls against his four seamer. Only 3 of them were pulled. That is an 8.8% pull rate against his fastball on fly balls. That was the third lowest among the 177 pitchers with at least 25 fly balls against four seamers. He also had a 2.8% pulled fly ball rate overall against his four seamer, which ranked tied for fifth lowest among the 106 pitchers with at least 100 batted balls against their four seamers. On the contrary, 52.9% of the fly balls hit against his four seamer were hit straight away, which is naturally where it's much more difficult to hit the ball out of the ballpark, right? It's a longer distance. You're losing a bit of power. And that was tied for the highest rate on the aforementioned list of 177 pitchers with at least 25 fly balls allowed against their four seamer. DJ Hers also featured a changeup that he threw nearly exclusively to righties and a slider that he threw mostly to lefties. He had a run value per 100 over 1.0 on his four seamer with a positive run value per 100 on each of his secondaries. So I'm very wary about primary four seam pitchers a lot of the time because it's a pitch that quote unquote rises, and in that I mean it doesn't drop as much. By default, hitters are more likely to get under the ball. You're probably going to see more fly balls. You're probably going to see a decent amount of home runs. And DJ Hurst did allow his fair share of home runs last year, but considering the volume of four seamers that he throws, he got just about the best contact imaginable for a guy that has average vertical movement on it. It's not like a Palante situation. So I'm very interested in seeing what he can do in perhaps a larger workload this year. He threw 88 innings last year. I'd like to see him throw at least 130 with a K per nine above 9.5, at or above 9.5. And that's interesting because as of right now, the Fangraphs projected rotation has him in the minors to start the season, but that really means he's one pitching injury away. And once he gets into that rotation, he can, pitch his way into staying in it, right? Like other than Mackenzie Gore, I don't think anyone in this rotation is completely safe from, being taken out if they're not good enough, whether it be Irvin, whether it be Mitchell Parker, whether it be Trevor Williams, whether it be Mike Soroka. I think DJ Hers has a very good possibility of taking a spot from one of those guys if the opportunity presents itself.
Yeah, yeah, very interesting. Yeah, he's definitely someone to look out for, putting up 27, 28% strikeout rate,
Hmm.
first year in the big leagues is definitely going to get some eyes on you. So yeah, now on to questions. My question is, what is more likely? Mackenzie Gore gets Cy Young votes or James Wood gets MVP votes?
I'm gonna go with James Wood on that one pretty comfortably. There are so many cool things that we saw out of James Wood last year. I believe it was like a 117 OPS plus or something like that. I want to check to make sure I'm getting that
I
right.
think above that. I think it was
Was it?
120s.
It might have been. It was. I mean, he had an above average. Yeah, 122 last year, and yet there were still so many clear flaws. He had like a 56% ground ball rate. He didn't pull the ball. He struck out all the time. Didn't play good defense. If he can fix like two of those things and do the rest of the good things over the course of a full season, like that's he might have a higher ceiling than just about anyone in the game, but there's obviously so much work that still needs to be done for him to get there. And if he can even get halfway there, I think we're talking about a 5-6 win player and definitely a guy that gets MVP votes.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So my question is a little bit of more of a fun one, I guess. Last year, Mackenzie Gore threw his four seam fastball 55.3% of the time, and Jacob Young had a 56.5% ground ball rate. So which number will be higher, Mackenzie Gore's four seam fastball percentage or Jacob Young's ground ball rate?
Very, very interesting. I'm gonna look at some trends. His fastball did go up a mile per hour from 2023 to 2024, so that is a good thing. Spin went up. Um, but he threw it, he did throw it less than 2023, and in 2023 he threw it less times than in 2022. So it is trending down, and I think
Hmm.
that kind of just happens with like big time four seamer guys is usually a pitching coach is like, hey, we
You don't
let's
throw
let's
that
mix
60% of the time.
let's
Yeah.
mix it up a little bit. You're not it's not 1923 anymore. Um, but they probably don't say that, but it's like, you're not.
They say, well, no, it's the Nationals. They say, I don't care how hard you throw a ball for.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Um, and then Jacob Young was last year his only year in the league, or is
I
it
believe so.
oh, he played a little bit in 2023.
Okay.
And in that year, his ground ball rate was a little bit higher. It was 58%.
So they're both trending down, but
They're
I mean,
both trending down.
what was the,
Look at
what
these
was the
guys.
2023 sample size? Well, how many batted balls are we talking about
It
that
was
year?
121 plate appearances, so
Okay.
88 batted balls.
Okay. That's actually a lot more than I thought.
I'm gonna say, J Jacob Young is a guy where, he's so fast that hitting ground balls isn't the worst thing in the world. So,
Hmm.
I'm gonna say it's Jacob Young's ground ball rate is the higher one this year.
Sure.
Um, so yeah, all right, now on to, so yeah, that does it for the Nationals. Now we get on to the playoff teams in the National League East, and three teams that all have a pretty good chance to win this division. So we will start off with the Braves,
Oh,
who
wait,
went.
whoa. The Mets had the lower seed last year.
Oh yeah, I got the order
Yeah.
wrong. Yeah, I forgot because yeah,
The Mets definitely, I mean, like the vibes said the Mets
mhm.
finished second last year. Technically, they finished third.
And I did also and the Padres were way better than the Brewers.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that's where I messed up
No,
is
that's I had to double check. I was like, the Mets got the sixth seed, right? Because they
yeah,
played the division winner.
yeah, no. So yeah, we'll move on to the Mets first
Yeah.
before we move on to the Braves. And the Mets went 89 and 73, finished third in the National League East. Defeated the Brewers in the National Wild Card Series, defeated the Phillies in the NLDS, and lost to the Dodgers in the NLCS. They lost Luis Severino, Jose Quintana, Jose
So officially,
Iglesias. Yes, officially today. Uh, Jose Iglesias, JD Martinez, Brooks Raley, Phil Maton, Adam Ottavino, and DJ Stewart.
man,
And
how could they make up for those losses?
yeah, I wonder if they could make up for the Adam Ottavino loss. They added Juan Soto, Clay Holmes, Frankie Montas, Nick Madrigal, AJ Minter, and Griffin Canning. And who's your Mets player to watch?
Yeah, look, it's cheap, but this is the offseason in which, the Mets really made a big statement, right? For decades and decades and decades, it's been a Yankee town. And this is the chance that the Mets have always had to, this is the best chance the Mets have had to, I mean, granted, it will never be a Mets town, but this is their chance to make it as close as possible. And, they added the big guy from the Yankees. And that's right. I am talking about Clay Holmes. As my player to watch. People were like, my favorite part of last year, the New York Post had a headline in like September or August of last year that said like the Yankees re-signing Juan Soto might like hinder their ability to also re-sign Clay Holmes, which became even funnier when the Mets signed both.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, so I am talking about Clay Holmes, who is very famously making the transition from reliever to starter this year. And I'm actually very optimistic that he'll be able to do it. From May 20th through the end of last season, obviously Clay Holmes was closing games for the Yankees. Opponents hit 294 with an expected batting average of 160 against him. That's tough. That is, by the way, Clay Holmes, he's a sinker baller. He has that slider. He has that sweeper. He is a ground ball pitcher just as much as anyone else. Overall, opponents hit 313 on ground balls against him in that span with a 256 expected batting average against, making him one of the unluckiest pitchers on ground balls in all of baseball. Last year, he did something that I really liked, which was add 5 inches of drop to his sweeper. 60% of the sweepers that he threw last year had at least 45 inches of drop and 15 inches of glove side movement, which was the 4th highest rate among the 131 pitchers with at least 100 sinkers thrown. Additionally, last year, 12.9% of the batted balls against Clay Holmes were hard hit and in the sweet spot. Less than 13% met both of those marks, and that made him the 21st lowest rate among the 315 pitchers with at least 150 batted balls hit against them last year. Going back into his pitch arsenal, 57.2% of the sliders that he threw last year had at least 40 inches of drop, and that was the 21st highest rate among the 171 pitchers with at least 250 sliders thrown last year. Additionally, 47.7% of the sinkers thrown by Clay Holmes last year were at least 95 miles per hour with at least 25 inches of drop, the 7th highest rate among the 93 pitchers with at least 400 sinkers thrown. What am I trying to say here? I'm trying to say 2 things. Clay Holmes is nasty, and he was tremendously unlucky last year. I think as a starter, those numbers are going to balance out a little more. He's going to continue getting the ground balls at the same rate that he does, while also having the nastiest stuff that you might see in that Mets rotation outside of maybe Manaea, maybe the forkball, the ghost fork, right, from Senga. I think he is actually going to be able to quite seamlessly make this transition into a starter. I think it's going to be almost shades of Garrett Crochet last year. I'm not going to say it's to the same degree, but we were having very similar conversations about him last year, thinking, what do you mean you're making this guy a starter? He's not a starter. He's never been a starter. And then look what he became. I think Clay Holmes can do that to a certain degree as well. Maybe not in the same way. I don't think he's going to strike out 13 batters per 9, but I think he's going to be a frontline starter in this Mets rotation and a guy that, like I said, gets the ground balls and also gets the strikeouts and has some of the nastiest stuff that you'll see. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing what he can do this year.
Yeah, he'll be interesting. And yeah, we kind of saw glimpses of what could be a good situation with Jordan Hicks going from
Yes.
bullpen to starter last
Yeah,
year.
that's a better comparison, I would say, is Jordan Hicks.
Yeah, and Jordan Hicks, like Holmes, big time ground ball pitcher. But yeah, you could definitely, Clay Holmes, you could argue had more historical success as a reliever than Jordan Hicks did, and could be a better pitcher just overall. So yeah, now on to my Mets player to watch. It's another starter in that rotation. It's a guy who's kind of been there a while, if I recall correctly. But I'm talking about David Peterson, who I'm really excited. I'm really optimistic about what he did to end last year, including the postseason too. But I didn't really include the postseason stats. But in his final 11 starts of 2024, he put up a 2.41 ERA and 2.77 FIP in 67 and a third innings pitched. Out of 69 qualifying pitchers, from out of 69 qualifying starters from the start of August on last year. He ranked 8th in ERA and 6th in FIP. And also overall from August on last year, he ranked 5th in FWAR. So according to Fangraphs, he was the 5th most productive pitcher from August on last year. And despite having a strikeout rate in the 24th percentile overall last year, he put up an above average called strike and whiff rate. So, I know the strikeout rate wasn't great last year, but, kind of under the surface, if you're getting called strikes and whiffs, usually that translates to strikeouts. So I expect that to kind of naturally balance out and for that to go back up this upcoming year. We cut down on walks a little bit too. And I think cut down on home runs, which was a big reason why he was able to have a 2.77 FIP in his final 11 starts. So a goal for him would be to just throw 150 plus innings this year with a sub 3.5 FIP. That would be a really good season for him and something the Mets definitely need because they're not really a star powered they're not really a star powered rotation. So they just kind of need quality production from 3 or 4 guys to really be a good rotation. And David Peterson, I can imagine being one of those starters. So yeah, now on to questions.
Yeah, so my Mets question revolves around the main storyline of this team. Will Francisco Lindor and Juan Soto combine for over or under 13.5 FWAR?
Over or under 13.5 FWAR. So the average of that would be
Like 6.7, I think.
6.75, yeah. 6.75. I mean, certainly a high standard to put that in. I'm sure like if you look at projections, which are normally, naturally conservative, it
Yeah,
probably
they
combines for a
rubber
little bit
band.
less. Juan Soto on depth charts is projected for 6.5. Lindor is projected for 5.9, which isn't, honestly isn't that far off from 13.5. And if I go to Zips, I think all the projections.
They rubber band, I like to call it, where like they keep everything together and condensed,
Yeah, Francisco
which
Lindor
is not
6.0.
usually how things turn out in the real world. Which to be fair, I get why you can't just like throw up a 12 win projected season for like Bobby Witt Jr.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
if he does it, I don't think anyone's gonna be too shocked.
It's a strong possibility for sure,
Yeah.
for sure. Um, so yeah, like, and I don't take the projections completely in hand, but yeah, I mean, it just I think it's a matter of if they still stay healthy or not. I think Juan Soto, I'm comfortable with the idea of him having another 7-win season. I don't know if he'll get to that same level as last year, but I think he'll have around 7, and I think Lindor will have between 6 and 7. Um, but or wait, from actually for the F4 draft, I did write down
Oh,
some things on how many I think that they will have, and I think it was a smidge under 13.3. Let me
oh no
double
way.
check. Let me just double check.
I don't mean to leak your F4 league draft board. Our draft is in a week from tomorrow.
Yeah, honestly, if
Which,
anyone in our league,
shocking. Breaking news: Chris is looking at Juan Soto and Francisco Lindor.
yeah,
Don't leak that to the league.
I mean, there's no way that
I pick
Juan
after
Soto
you,
falls to
so
me.
yeah, no.
There's not a shot that Juan Soto falls to me. Oh no, I have over. I'm gonna say
Okay.
over.
All
Yeah,
right.
over 13.5.
Beautiful.
Um, so my question is kind of the basicest of the basicest.
Hmm.
Um, who will have more home runs, Pete Alonso or Juan Soto?
So Pete Alonso has been pretty consistently in like the low 30s for the last few years, right?
He got 40 a couple years ago and
Okay.
46 the year before that. Juan Soto
So
had 41 last
okay,
year,
yeah,
which
yeah,
was a
yeah.
career high.
Interesting. Um, I mean, yeah, that's actually a pretty good question. Because both of them are like very, or at least have been very available the last few years. Pete Alonso's had at least 650 plate appearances in each of the last 3 seasons. Soto's had at least 650. So you're probably looking at a relatively equal. You're probably looking at a relatively equal number of plate appearances from both of them. Um, I will say Soto. I don't know. I don't love the idea of betting against him by any means. Um, He is going into his age 27 season. Alonso is going into his age 30 season. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and take Juan Soto in that one.
All right. Yeah, sounds good. Sounds good. Yeah,
Actually, wait, I think
and
he's going to 26, right? I said
um
27. I think Soto's going into 26.
yeah, he's going into 26.
Yeah, so he is 4 years younger. That's crazy. That's insane.
Yeah,
Uh,
and Soto got to the league before Alonso.
yeah, Soto was in his yeah, Soto uh dominated the World Series the same year Pete Alonso was a rookie.
Yeah, right. Um yeah, no, and by the way, I like it if there if I were someone else in our F4 league, I would just listen to our top 10 lists and top 50 lists just to get a sense of cuz
I would say we are leaking our list
yeah,
before we do the draft. Like
yeah,
if
we
anyone in the
league
league is smart, they'll know exactly what we're looking at.
yeah, and I did notice our draft last year was I was impressed with the results of our draft. So maybe a
We
couple
have,
people.
I will say, like nobody in our F4 league follows baseball the way we do, but everyone is very, very smart. And like everyone does look at baseball in what we believe to be the correct way.
Yeah, I mean,
Like all
like
credit to the other six people in that league.
yeah, shout out to there's over 100 players drafted last year. No one took Nolan Arenado, and it ended up being a good decision. And
Yeah.
no one took Luis Ariz. That ended up being a good decision. So shout out to our league. That would
Yeah.
not happen everywhere.
Credit to all of you.
Yes, all eight of us.
Yeah, even you, Luke.
Yeah. Um, Now on to the Braves, who went 89 and 73 and finished third in the National League East, or finished second in the National League East, and lost to the Padres in the National League Wild Card Series. They lost Max Fried, Charlie Morton, Ramon Laureano, Jesse Chavez, AJ Minter, Adam Duvall, Whit Merrifield, and Gio Urshela. They added Jurickson Profar, Brian De La Cruz, Kurt Casale, and Aniel De Los Santos. And my player to watch is someone who I just watched get highlighted on Foolish Bailey's channel. So
Yo, let's go.
I put him I had him in mind before I saw that, but I'll just kind of add on to one of Foolish Bailey's pitchers that he likes heading into 2025, and that is Grant Holmes. Grant Holmes, after spending 10 years in the minors, he pitched his rookie season last year and had a pretty good rookie season. He put up a 3.56 ERA, 1.17 ERA plus, 3.20 FIP, and 3.46 expected ERA in 66 and a third innings pitched in a hybrid starter reliever role. Put up a 25% strikeout rate and 5% walk rate last year, and was 97th percentile in chase rate and 92nd percentile in whiff rate. And he's bound to get more starts with Strider starting the year on the IL and Fried and Morton now off the team. So, the Braves rotation certainly looks a lot more shallow than in years past. So Grant Holmes, I expect to get some starting opportunities, and I expect him to succeed. A goal would be a 120 ERA plus in 20 or more starts. I think that would be a really, really successful season for Grant Holmes. So yeah, now onto your player to watch. Who's your Braves player to watch for 2025?
Yeah, you stole my setup. I was gonna lead in by saying, much like the Mets, I'm talking about another starter. I'm talking about another guy making the reliever to starter transition. I'm talking about another guy named Holmes, Grant
Wow.
Holmes. Yeah. Did you
Yes.
see either my tweet or my article from last week that I wrote for justbaseball.com?
I've been kind of out of the loop
Fair. You
for the
had a
last
lot of
week.
stuff going on. Yeah, I actually wrote an article about Grant Holmes for Just Baseball last week. So I have the receipts that I also had him down before Foolish Bailey highlighted him. Yeah, and you kind of touched on a lot of it, but I'll go more into the deeper stuff because I obviously did probably a deeper dive on Grant Holmes than just about any player to watch that I have for this entire year. He had a 33.4% called strike and whiff rate last year, which was the 11th highest among the 271 pitchers with at least 1,000 total pitches thrown. He also had a 35.1% whiff rate, which was the sixth highest among the 275 pitchers with at least 500 pitches thrown outside the strike zone, which means when people chased, they whiffed 35% of the time. So that was a big one. 61 point, excuse me. Okay, his regular whiff rate was 35.1%. He had a 61.5% whiff rate on chases, which was tied for the seventh highest among the 255 pitchers with at least 150 swings out of the strike zone. 0.8% of total pitches, or excuse me, that's definitely written wrong. What did I write? What's the actual thing? Because I definitely wrote that wrong. 10.8% of total pitches resulted in whiffs outside the strike zone. So, yeah, 10% of pitches he threw outside the strike, 10% of pitches he threw total resulted in whiffs outside the strike zone. That was the fourth highest rate among the aforementioned list of 271 pitchers with at least 1,000 pitches thrown. But as a starter, none of this changed because he made that transition mid-season and he was still the same guy. He had a 36.6% chase rate as a starter, which led the 267 starting pitchers with at least 100 outside pitches thrown last year. He had a 21.9% of outside pitches resulting in swings and misses, which was the fourth highest among the 3,810 seasons since 2008 with at least 200 outside pitches. Additionally, he had a 59.8% whiff rate on chases, which was the 21st highest among the 3,874 seasons since 2008 with at least 50 swings outside the zone. So this guy, he has a lot of good stuff. He's very deceptive. He gets a lot of good, outside the zone numbers, which I really like. And I think he can play as a starter. So my hope is a little more vague than yours. I simply hope he stays in the rotation after Spencer Strider returns because, assuming everyone stays healthy, you're going to have Chris Sale, you're going to have Ronaldo Lopez, you're going to have Spencer Schwellenbach, and then you're going to have Spencer Strider, which leaves one person left. And I'm hoping that Grant Holmes is the guy that gets that nod once Strider comes back this year.
Right, yeah. And yeah, sometimes if we do the same player, I do want to give a shout out to someone who I think would be a lot of people's player to watch. And with going with Grant Holmes, I was trying to avoid this guy who's kind of just sticks out a little more because he's a little younger and has some really good stuff. Talking about Spencer Schwellenbach.
Yeah.
He's heading into his age 25 season. He's also coming off a really good rookie year.
For me, he broke out like a little too much for me to put him on this list.
Yeah, that same here. Like he had
if he was like slightly worse, I probably would have done it.
He had a
21%
strikeout minus walk rate, and he was also 90th percentile in barrel rate. He threw I think 5 pitches at least 10% of the time and had positive 5 pitches at least 10% of the time and had positive run value on all 5 of those pitches. So yeah, and he's a 25-year-old. I think he could be a very dark horse Cy Young pick for some people as well. So yeah, like that's I think we were both trying to avoid picking him because he really sticks out too.
Yes.
But yeah, on to questions.
You go first.
My question, last year was a big step back for a lot of their offensive players last year. So I'm talking about 2 in particular. Who will get closest to their 2023 form, Ozzie Albies or Michael Harris II?
Okay. All right. So Harris, if I remember correctly, had a few down months in 2023, but then picked it back up late in the season and didn't really have that last year. Also was hurt for part of that season. Albies hit very well, obviously. He had kind of the classic Ozzie Albies season. I do feel more optimistic in Harris. I think in a full season, he can very easily get there with just the incredible defensive numbers that he has. I would like to see, of course, the decrease of his ground ball rate by a touch. I've been asking for that for a couple of years now. So I don't know if it's going to happen or not this year, but regardless, he's a solid player. I think he gets closer. I have a very similar question. Who will have the largest F4 increase from 2024? Will it be Austin Riley, Matt Olson, or Michael Harris II?
Michael Harris II, Matt Olson, and who else?
Austin Riley, for who will have the largest increase over their 2024 F4.
Yeah, so I think Harris had 2.0 last year. Riley was in the mid twos, and then Matt Olson was also around two, I think, if I'm
Yeah,
not mistaken.
that sounds
Um,
right.
I'm yeah, it's tough. It's tough. I think I'm the least optimistic of those three. I'm the least optimistic about Michael Harris.
Hmm.
Just because part of it has to do with like his base running value just went down, and that happens more often as you age. So, and not that he's old or anything, but
No.
typically you're fastest at your youngest point. Um, like yeah, Ricky Henderson stole 130 bases when he was like 23 or 24 or something like that. Yeah, Matt Olson was at 2.6. With Matt Olson, it's really just the every other year theory that's
Yeah.
enticing me because he had 6.5 in 2023. He had 5.0 in 2021. So that entices me. But I think I believe in Austin Riley the most because of the underlying stuff last year, and also he's going to be playing a lot more games too. Um, and I know Michael Harris the second also got injured, but on a rate basis, I like Austin Riley a bit more. And I think I expect him to like my expectation for him this year is way closer to what he was doing the previous 3 years than he was
Hmm.
last year. So
For
I
sure.
I expect the most progression from him. So I'll go with Austin Riley.
Excellent.
Um, now on to the final team in the National League East that we have to get to, the Philadelphia Phillies
The Philadelphia Phillies
have won the yeah. Uh,
are 2024 NL East champions of baseball.
of baseball. It drags out the perfect amount of time that baseball. If you
I
don't,
randomly thought about that the other day when I was at work because we were talking about some of my coworkers and I were talking about Joe Buck, and my take on Joe Buck was that he had some pretty botched calls in like the early 2000s, and people formed their opinions of him then, but he progressed and got better over time, and people just decided they hated Joe Buck because everyone hated Joe Buck, but they didn't see the progression that was happening over time, and it just became this thing where everyone hated Joe Buck, but no one knew why. And
right,
I have two examples of like here's a really bad Joe Buck call from the 2000s. One of them is an Albert Pujols walk-off grand slam, or maybe it's not a grand slam, a walk-off home run in the 2011 regular season where he just says in the air to left field at the wall, Pujols has won it in the most monotone voice. And the other one is the final out of the 2008 World Series. And I was like, if you look up any highlight of the Phillies winning the World Series, it's the Harry Kalas call where he goes, the Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 world champions of baseball. And it's my favorite call. Chris and I cite it all the time.
I mean it really gives all the context you need.
Yeah.
What year?
Swing and a
2008.
miss, struck
World
him
champ
out.
world champions of what?
Baseball.
Baseball.
Swing and a miss struck him out too.
Swinging,
It's like how
yeah.
did the final out happen? The Mark Simon question. What was the final out?
Yeah, I think Brad Lidge got Eric Hinsky on like a
Yep.
splitter or something.
Oh yeah.
Um, but yeah, we're talking about the Philadelphia Phillies. They went
I
95
almost
and
wanted to say it again.
67. They went 95 and 67 and won the National League East and then lost to the Mets in the NLDS. They lost Jeff Hoffman, Spencer Turnbull, Carlos Estevez, and Austin Hayes, and they added Jesus Luzardo, Max Kepler, and Jordan Romano. Who's your Phillies player to watch?
Yeah, my player to watch is one of those three additions. It's a guy that had a down year in 2024, battled so many different injuries that I would like to see make a little comeback, and that is Max Kepler. Throughout last year, he battled knee, leg, neck, and elbow injuries throughout 2024. He basically injured every part of his body last year, which unfortunately is not something new. He definitely, unfortunately, has had a history of getting injured a decent amount, but never to that extent. And it clearly affected his play on the field. And I really just wanted to shift the focus back to who we know he can be. He's just 2 years removed from a 260, 332, 484, 816 slash line for a 123 weighted runs created plus in 491 plate appearances, like very, very close to qualifying with a 125 ish OPS or weighted runs created plus. So I think that he can become that guy again. Despite his injuries, Max Kepler did continue to post a 4 outs above average and minus zero point 0.5 defensive runs above average as a corner outfielder last season. I know that you might look at the negative value and decide it's bad. Corner outfielders get hit pretty heavily with defensive positional adjustments. So to have that much as an injured player is actually pretty good. In 2023, Max Kepler hit 24 home runs with a projected 29 if he played his entire season at Citizens Bank Park. So he could be coming to a more favorable ballpark for him. And likely, going back to the injury stuff, he experienced a career low in pull rate on fly balls last year. He experienced a 7-year low in barrel rate on fly balls and a 4-year low in average exit velocity, a 8-year low in pull rate, a 10-year high in chase rate, and a career high in whiff rate. So there's obviously a lot that he has to overcome. I would imagine the injuries played some role in a lot of those last year. And I just hope that he can, become at least closer to his 2023 self as he was to his 2024 self, which is why I want to see him put up a 750 OPS plus this year because the midway point between his 2023 and 24 OPS is 749. So I would like to see him, like I said, in terms of OPS, be closer to his 2023 self.
Yes, 750 OPS for the season. So yeah, right. So my player to watch is someone kind of like your player to watch, someone who had a really good season in 2023, but took some steps back in 2024. But I expect for a variety of reasons him to kind of get back to the 2023 level, excuse me. I'm talking about Bryson Stott, the second baseman for the Philadelphia Phillies. Um, you know, I I kept him at number 10 for second baseman for 2025 this year because I do have faith in the bounce back for him. He's heading into his age 27 season, so he's definitely on the younger side. And for context, his OPS plus went from 103 to 89 from 2023 to 2024. But his WOBA went down 27 points, but his expected WOBA only went down 3 points, and that is despite increasing his rate of fly balls being pulled, which usually makes you do better compared to your expected numbers when you increase your rate of fly balls being pulled. The other big thing that kind of brought down his overall value last year was his outs above average going from plus 17 to 0 from 2023 to 2024. However, his defensive runs saved actually went from plus 6 to plus 7. So I think there's a middle ground there, and defensive runs saved maybe represents that. I don't think he'll be at plus 17 for outs above average next year, but I don't think he'll be at 0 either. I think he'll be, you know, between probably 5 and 10 this upcoming year. And along with, his potential at the plate and on defense, he continued to be an elite base runner last year, and he went 32 for 35 on stolen bases in 2024, and he is 63 for 69 for the last 2 years. He also ranks fifth among all players in weighted stolen base runs over the last 2 years. For those unaware, weighted stolen base runs is the amount of runs you create for your team through your stolen bases, and it's not just who has the most stolen bases, it's who has the best combination of stolen bases and caught stealings. And the fact that he's stole over 30 bases each of the last 2 years without getting caught more than 3 times, that has his value of stolen bases be much higher than some of the guys that might even have more stolen bases than him. So yeah, with Bryson Stott, my goal for him would be to get 3.5 FWAR this year. He had 1.9 last year, and he had 4.2 the year before. If he gets closer to that 2024 level, I think he can continue to be a very productive player. Or if he can continue to get to that 2023 level, I think it will be a very productive player for the Phillies. On to questions.
Yeah, so my question, this is a little more of an in-depth one. Trey Turner is 21 stolen bases away from 300 for his career, and Kyle Schwarber is 16 home runs away from 300 for his career. So who will get to the milestone first? And in the event where neither of them get there, who will be closer by the end of the year? So it's, answer one of the two, I guess.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Because it's likely that one of them gets there, but who knows?
Yeah, no, I gotta go. I'm gonna go with Kyle Schwarber,
Mm-hmm.
because partially because even with the stolen base rules, Trey Turner hasn't been lighting it up in terms of stolen bases the past couple of years, and also um, after he uh, after he got injured last year, after he hit the IL with a strained hamstring, I recall a stat that I pointed out in the top 10 list. He went from stealing a base every like 3 games to stealing one every 9 games, I think. So, if that hamstring is still ailing, then that's definitely a concern. But considering the fact that Kyle Schwarber got 38 home runs last year and over 40, or close to 50 the previous 2 years. And also Schwarber has, less room to go. He's just a home run hitting machine. So I'm going to go with Kyle Schwarber. My question is also revolves around two players, revolving around, well, actually technically the same stat, but they are accumulated differently. Um, my question is, Aaron Nola and Kyle Schwarber both had 197 strikeouts last year. Who,
Nice.
who will have more this year?
That's awesome. That's so much fun. Um, how old is Aaron Nola this year? Like 30, what? I would guess like 31.
I would guess that too.
He is 32. We were a year off. Um, I mean, the strikeout rate has been declining in the last couple of years. His strikeouts per nine, for example, has gone from 11.1 to 10.3 to 9.4 to 8.9. So I would venture to guess he probably has less than 197 strikeouts this year alone. Kyle Schwarber, meanwhile, I mean, does the strikeout rate go up by a year? Probably, or at least stays the same. I'll go with Kyle Schwarber for this one.
Very, very nice.
Yeah,
Very fun one. A
that
couple
is a
years
good one. I
ago,
like that.
yeah, a couple years ago, I asked the same question with Zach Wheeler and Kyle Schwarber, and
Ah, classic.
I forget who had more, but it
It
was for
was
the 2022 season maybe, because I recall asking it in that
so that would
studio.
have been his first Philly season then.
Schwarber, or maybe it was 2023. That's, I
Yeah,
don't know.
Mike,
Um,
it probably would have been. It probably would have been 23 if I had to guess.
2023, yeah. So
That
it might have
makes I
been
don't know. That feels like it makes more sense.
it probably ended up being Schwarber because I know Wheeler got injured that year, if I'm not mistaken. Um, or no, he didn't get injured in 2023. I don't know. Well, anyway, that's my question for this year.
Excellent. Well, yeah,
Um,
I'm going with Kyle Schwarber. We're both going with Kyle Schwarber,
yes,
just in very different contexts.
we have belief and non-belief in him. Um, we believe his numbers will be higher, but in both positive and negative categories.
Yes.
So yeah, that does it for the National League East. Um, and yeah, next week will be the AL West, I believe. Yeah, AL West, the National League Central.
Yep, that's
Um,
correct. As we always wanted, we're finishing with the NL Central.
yeah, I mean that is the hot team. That we know that
Yeah,
the NL
I can't wait
Central
to
is.
hear about all the St. Louis Cardinals additions.
I mean, the additions of all those teams
Yeah,
pretty spectacular. I mean,
Jose
we
Quintana.
know, yeah, Jose Quintana, shout out.
Yeah.
Maybe not the biggest deal, but a smart deal. Um, so yeah, now we advance to the ARR top 50, or
Woo.
the current and Gianta 50, more accurately, because we do have two separate lists, but we typically have a lot of overlap. But yeah, this is something I'll probably next year try to do it at the end of the year, probably when we're doing kind of our review of things, when w- the same way you went over
The questions,
the
yes.
answers to questions. I'll probably try to do this, but we're comparing our lists to MLB Network, going based off results, and I went off 4 wins above replacement lists because there's no better number, albeit WAR isn't perfect. Wins above replacement isn't perfect. WAR certainly isn't perfect, but wins above
But it's the
replacement.
closest thing to perfect we have.
it's
The thing
the
that annoys me, like real
yes.
quick, I'm sorry to just backtrack. WAR is the only stat that you have to preface by saying, now we know it's not perfect, but you don't do that for any other stat, which is really just like to me what shows why WAR is the best stat. Because you don't even have to preface by saying, well, I know RBI isn't perfect, because we all know that. Everyone knows that it's not perfect.
Yeah.
You have to do every time you bring up WAR, whether it's on MLB Network, whether it's on whatever podcast you listen to, you always hear someone being like, now I know WAR isn't perfect, but you
No,
don't
that's
do
a
that
good
with
point.
any other you don't do that with any other stat, which is why WAR is the best stat.
Yeah. But and war isn't perfect,
But you're
but
right, it isn't. But
it isn't perfect, but it is the only stat that's provided
it is the closest thing we have.
that gives a total value of someone over given how much they played and what they did on the field. It's the only one that does that. So it's like, yeah, we that's the best one to measure value. So
Yeah.
there's four
Now I know
separate
now.
war lists that I'm comparing us and MLB Network with. So we have the pure F4 top 50, which is, uh what you see on the on the leaderboards. It's fit based F4, when we're talking about pitchers. This does, with the three F4 lists, none of the position players are affected at all. It's just the pitchers. Um, so there's the pure F4 one. Then there's the RA9 F4 top 50 matches. So that's based on for pitchers, it's completely based on run prevention. And then there's the 50-50 split F4 top 50 matches where it's the
Yeah,
average between the FIP based,
RA9 and FIP,
the RA9 and FIP
which
based
I believe
wins above
Fangraphs just has
replacement.
available on their website, right?
Yes, they have
Yeah.
that available, and it's in the total wins above replacement leaderboards. And then I also went with B War, the top 50 B War, which was tough because they don't have a total leaderboard. There's just the batting and the pitching value ones. So I had to do a manual cutoff, and one of the manual cutoffs I chose was benefited me because there was another guy on my list. So,
Nice.
um, maybe a little bit of bias towards
Yeah.
myself, but
Now I know pitcher wins aren't perfect,
yeah. Yeah,
but
no, that's implied. But and I'm only providing this because we did better than MLB Network in pretty much all
yeah, we did.
aspects.
Yeah, we
Um
did.
but for context, in terms of overlaps with our top 50s, MLB Network and Daniel had 42 overlaps, and I had 41 overlaps with MLB Network. So the differences can only be so much. But I think we did a pretty good job in terms of the top 50 matches on pure F War, fit based F War. MLB Network had 20 from their list in the uh, top 50. 20 in their top 20 in their list ended up being top 50 in pure F War. For Daniel, it was 22, and for me, it was 23. Then on the RA9 F War top 50 matches, MLB Network had 18, Daniel had 19, and I also had 19. On the 50-50 split F4 top 50 matches, MLB Network had 20, Daniel had 21, and I also had 21. And then for the B War top 50 matches, MLB Network had 17, Daniel had 17, and I had 20. Um,
Wow.
yeah. And
Wow.
the guy who
Are you gonna
snuck in
convert to B War?
the guy I snuck, yeah, I'm going totally based on B War. I got Nick Martinez in my top 50 this year. Um, but the guy I added that was a cutoff, who I don't really think was a top 50 player last year, but was insult to injury, was Andres Jimenez. He had 4.0 B War
Yeah.
last year.
Yup.
But I benefited because I had William Contreras and Cal Raleigh in my lists. And then we both benefited by having Dansby Swanson in our list because he was top 50 on both B War
He was
and
top
F War.
27 for me
Yeah,
on my
right.
list, and MLB Network had him at like 60th.
Yeah, 67. They had him at 67.
Yeah.
Um, so we did better than MLB Network last year, so this is why you should listen to us. And in post production, I'm gonna add the numbers on Foolish Bailey to see.
He
I'm
probably
just
beat us.
curious. I'm
He
just
probably
yeah.
beat
He
us.
probably beat us. Definitely like on the F4 front. I think he beat us.
Yeah.
Um, And that's
That's
not to
fine.
say
Friend of
that's not
the show, Foolish Bailey. So it's all good.
indeed. Indeed. And all right. So yeah, as promised, in post-production, I did look up some of these numbers, how we compared how we did compared to MLB Network. Um, we're doing the same with Foolish Bailey. I also found where we compared to some other lists like ESPN, Baseball America, CBS Sports, and Pitcher List, but going over all that, it would just take too much take too much time from this episode. So I'll just talk about the overlaps with Foolish Bailey. Um, in terms of who we had on our 50, Daniel had 44 of the same players as Foolish Bailey, and I had 41 of those same players. And looking at how Foolish Bailey did in terms of getting um, players on his list that actually ended up being top 50 and wins above replacement, he did very well. Daniel and I had 22 and 23 respectively in terms of pure fit based F war. Foolish Bailey had 24. Then in terms of RA9 F war, Daniel and I had 19 matches. Foolish Bailey had 22 matches. And then if we move on to the 50-50 split F war, Daniel and I had 21 matches. Foolish Bailey had 23. And then with B War, Daniel had 17. I had 20. Foolish Bailey had 18. But yeah, in all the F War categories, Foolish Bailey had us. One of the guys that benefited him that neither Daniel or myself had was George Kirby. Um, and the big one for him, actually, now that I think more about it, was Vladimir Guerrero Jr. He had him at 49, snuck him onto the list, and paid off for him because neither Daniel nor myself ended up putting him in, and it ended up being a bad move on our parts. But yeah, shout out Foolish Bailey. He outdid us a little bit, and yeah, that's not to say that like wins above replacement means those are top 50 players. I think there's some certain overvaluings. I think in the future I might question how much Fangraphs values catchers because they do get
They factor them a lot.
they
Yeah.
do they do go a little bit crazy on the catcher defense. So I might reevaluate in the future. But it
To be
in
fair,
terms of
baseball reference goes crazy for any defense but catcher.
exactly.
Yeah.
No, it is strange. So I definitely agree more with Fangraphs on that. But yeah, so that's why I think that's a good thing for us, and I think that gives us confidence moving forward that we did do better than MLB Network last year, at least in terms of top 50 matches. I will reveal next week how we did on top 25s and top 10s. So we will go over that as well. Maybe
Yes.
MLB Network got us on that, but um,
I can tell you one place where I got everyone on top 10
yeah,
last year.
that's yeah, BWJ, shout out.
Yeah. Number
Um,
10, Bobby Wood Jr.
but yeah,
Undersold him heavy.
now that we have that out of the way, we can get into our top 50 lists. We're gonna highlight two out of every five players, and just kind of reveal them. We'll start off with 50 through 46 and just kind of reveal, maybe give a little context to why each player is there and highlight two specific players. For me, there's one 5-player cycle where I have one that I want to highlight, and then there's another where I have three, and then there's another where I have three, but two of them are like half breakdowns. But yeah, and yeah, this is projection for 2025. This is what we think they will do in 2025. And if you want more full analysis on this, go to the 2025 positional rankings playlist where most of these players have already been discussed. But yeah, now that all the housekeeping is out of the way, do you want to reveal your 50 through 46?
I got one quick thing to get into first. If you're
Yes.
watching the podcast on YouTube right now and you notice that my face is not as illuminated as it usually is, a little peek behind the curtain here is that usually when we record, I set up my TV screen in front of my laptop and put up a YouTube video of a white screen because it reflects very nicely and it's the best light that I have in this apartment. YouTube just gave me a 1 minute unskippable ad in this video. I've never seen that before.
That's disgusting.
That's like Like we need to look into that. That shouldn't be legal.
True. We need to
Like
sue. We need to sue YouTube.
that's insane. Anyway, it's back now, but yeah, I just had to watch that for a minute. It was like 7 different ads too. They were all 5 seconds long.
True.
Okay, so I'm gonna preface how I'm going to reveal this. I'm obviously gonna start with my number 50 through 46. Chris and I are gonna reveal 5 at a time. On each group of 5, there will be 2 players that I don't say anything about, and there will be 3 players that I have a quick like little blurb on, like 1 or 2 sentences. If I don't say anything on a player, it means I have a lot more to say, and we'll get to that after I reveal all 5. So I guess we could just get into it. Starting with my number 50, making his debut, one of 25 players making their debut on the current 50. I have Lawrence Butler from the A's, and sticking in the Bay Area at number 49, I have Patrick Bailey from the San Francisco Giants. At number 48, I have Adley Rutschman, my previous number 24 from last year. Obviously, it was a bit of a down year for him, but with a lot of the underlying metrics staying where they were, whether it be the pull rate, some other things, I still think he's worthy of being in my top 50. He is staying on by the skin of his teeth at number 48. At number 47, I have Marcus Semien. He was my number 26 last year, had a down year offensively, was a below league average hitter, but played some of the best defense in the league, and the pull rate stayed where it was and only went down a little bit. So he is sticking at number 47. At number 46, I have Stephen Kwan, who obviously played a fantastic year last year. Had an early offensive surge, did come back down to earth a little, but landed himself pretty well around the 120s, 130s in a weighted unscrated plus, while playing outstanding defense at a corner outfield spot. So he is my number 46. Getting into Lawrence Butler, he obviously had a breakout towards the end of last year. From July through the end of last season, he ranked tied for 7th among position players in FWAR and 8th in weighted unscrated plus. So he was a top 10 position player in baseball among qualifiers from July through the end of last year. In that time, he went from barreling 24% of his fly balls to 34% of his fly balls between March through June and July through September. So he made some kind of mid-season adjustment that resulted in him pulling 10% more of his fly balls. Obviously, that leads to more home runs, and that's what we saw from him. Additionally, he showed a pretty good all-around solid season offensively. He was the first A's player since Yoenis Cespedes in 2012 to post a season with 20 home runs or more, 15 stolen bases or more, and an OPS above 800. So first A in 12 years to do that, and it was a rookie season by Lawrence Butler. Additionally, and I mentioned this on the last time I talked about him, which was on the top 5 or top 10 right fielders episode. His K rate went from 30.7% from March through June to 20.6% from July through September. And his barrel rate in that same span went from 6.7% to 12.8%. So Lawrence Butler debuts on this list. He's in my number 50 spot. Really wanted to put him on. I'm happy I was able to. Going into Patrick Bailey, you know him, you love him, you know exactly why he's on this list. Chris touched on it earlier with the Fangraphs catcher evaluations, but Savant kind of views him the same way, so it's a bit universal. His 23.7 Fangraphs framing metric last year was the highest by any catcher in a season since 2017. And you have to go all the way back to one of his bosses, Buster Posey, to find a catcher with a better framing season. And that goes all the way back to 2016. So it was an outstanding year last year, doubling down on the excellent framing. But on offense, he also showed some promise. He had a 28.8% line drive rate over the last 2 years, and that is tied for 7th among the 211 hitters with at least 500 batted balls since 2023. Bailey's pull rate did drop from 40.6% from March through June to 28.3% in July through August, which was the worst 2 months that I've ever seen anyone have offensively in a while. He slashed 154, 206, 203 in that span. That's probably what keeps him at 49 and not somewhere higher, because his FWAR overall was better than 49th last year. But I mean, it was a really rough drop in pull rate, and I got to see, where he really lies there. Bailey is one of 18 catchers since 2002 with 30 plus defensive runs saved and 40 plus framing runs, according to Fangraphs. He has the fewest innings of anyone among those 18 catchers by nearly 1,300 innings, which is equivalent to 144 games. So his framing is just about unmatched. His defense is unmatched by any catcher in baseball, and that is a large reason why he is making my list at number 49.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, some a good start there for the list. So yeah, my 50, I'll go the same route that you did. So yeah, my number 50 is Yoshinobu Yamamoto. My number 49 is Corbin Burns, who despite having a lower strikeout rate than he used to have, I love the type of contact he induces and the workload he has consistently put together since 2022, at least 190 innings each of the last 3 years. So that, along with quality production, gets him on the list. And then my number 48 is Alex Bregman. And by the way, uh, my number 49, Corbin Burns, he was not on my list last year. My number 48, Alex Bregman, he was number 36 last year. He is a consistent quality performer, but he doesn't have the same MVP potential that he used to have, or hasn't displayed that at least over the last half decade or so. And then my number 47 is Adley Rutschman,
Wow.
who
One
who
spot
is
off.
yeah, one spot off.
Nice.
Adley Rutschman was my number 18 last year. He got worse in all aspects last year, but I'm banking on him to find a balance between 2023 and 2024. And then my number 46 is Logan Webb, who was my number 31 last year. And over the last 3 years, he has a 124 ERA plus while pitching the most innings in baseball. So if you're that quality of performer while being the biggest workhorse, that deserves that gets him on the list for me. And I only have one breakdown for this portion of the list because I have some other guys on other parts of the list that I like a bit more, or would like to highlight a bit more. So I'm just talking about Yoshinobu Yamamoto, who was my number 48 last year. I kept him on my top 10 starting pitcher list because I'm trying to be the Yamamoto guy this year, and I'm hoping it pays off for me. He's heading into his age 26 season, and he didn't do anything for me to demote his case last year other than get injured. And we kind of all know that, health is kind of the least reliable thing you can bank on for a player in terms of evaluating them for the next year. It's least reliable. Good or bad. So, you can't rely on a pitcher to be like, oh, he's going to definitely throw 200 innings this year. But you can't, it's hard to be like, well, he's definitely not going to throw over 100 innings this year. So with Yamamoto, even though he got injured last year, I think he'll throw more innings this year. He threw 90 innings last year and he put up a 3.00 ERA and a 2.61 FIP. And among 140 pitchers with 90 plus innings last year, Yamamoto ranked fifth in FIP, 12th in strikeout rate, and 12th in strikeout minus walk rate. And although he did miss time with an injury last year, he threw 170 plus innings each of the previous 3 years in Japan. And I'm leaving guys off the list. Much like with the top 10 starting pitcher list, with this list, I'm leaving guys off with a much more proven track record, but I have a lot of faith in what Yamamoto delivered to us in a small sample size, and I have big belief in his potential overall as well. So Yamamoto stays on my list this year, and I'm hoping that it will pay off for 2025. Now on to 45 through 41.
Yeah, so at number 45, I have one of the 9 shortstops that I put on this list, Willy Adames. I think the defense will be a lot better than it was last year because he got some tough luck with the balls that he had to field. I think he'll transition nicely to Oracle. I don't think he'll be as effective as he was at American Family Field, but nonetheless, I still think he will be an effective hitter. Number 44, I have Manny Machado. Number 43, I have Cole Reagans. He has been one of the best pitchers in baseball since he made his debut with the Royals in July of 2023. The reason I don't have him higher, I would like to see the development of some more secondaries, or well, not the development, but I would like to see him improve on a couple of his secondaries and improve the walks a little bit. At number 42, I have Garrett Crochet, and at number 41, I have Austin Riley. Chris and I mentioned it earlier with the Braves question. He did get hurt last year and did have a down year overall, but a lot of the underlying metrics point to a lot of misfortune with him, especially with the injury. So I'm banking on a bounce back season for him, and he is remaining on my list after being number 20 in my 2024 current 50. So getting into Manny Machado, I had him as my number What did I have him as my last year? I had him as my number 49 player last year, and I'm moving him up to 44. He obviously played the first month of the season strictly as a DH because he was coming off shoulder surgery. And, it took him some time to really figure out himself, but got there by the end of the season. From June through the end of last year, Machado ranked 24th in position player FWAR. Also he had an 818 OPS as a third baseman and a 759 OPS as a DH. I think there are a lot of players that, hit better as a guy that plays the field. Yordan Alvarez actually talked about this before. He prefers playing left field because he, keeps him more engaged in the game rather than as a DH. The numbers actually do back that he hits better as a left fielder, even if the defense, is a bit of a liability. I think Machado could be in a very similar spot where he plays better as a third baseman, and he's probably going to play more as a third baseman this year because he's not coming off of a major injury, and he doesn't have to DH for a month. And I think that having to do that in April and parts of May of last year probably hindered a lot of his early season. I believe that because one thing that actually improved was something very controllable, which was his average bat speed. It went from 74.6 miles per hour from March through June to 75.7 from July through September. It went up a mile per hour. His fast swing rate went from 45.5% to 58.7% in that time. And additionally, his 7.8% barrel rate from March through June improved to 14% from July through September. His OPS went from 727 to 872 in that span. So I'm banking on another really solid season for Manny Machado. I think it will be an upgrade over what he did last year, hence why I'm putting him higher on my list than I did previously. Now getting into Garrett Crochet, he is changing his Sox, going from the White Sox to the Red Sox. He put up 12.88 strikeouts per nine last year, which was the ninth highest among all seasons with 100 innings pitched in baseball history. And it's the highest in White Sox history, minimum 75 innings pitched. I thought that one of those sales seasons with the White Sox would have been higher. It actually wasn't. So that was pretty interesting. Garrett Crochet's four-seam fastball had an average perceived velocity of 98.4 miles per hour. That means it's considering the actual velocity, but the adjustment given the extension that he gets off the mound. Obviously, when you extend your arm out, when pitching, you're not exactly throwing from 60 feet 6 inches. You're throwing from a little bit closer than that. And with that extra added closeness, Crochet's perceived velocity, like I mentioned, was 98.4 miles per hour. That was the highest in 2024 and the eighth highest among the 443 StatCast era seasons with at least 1,000 four-seamers thrown. He kept his strikeout rate above 30% in each month of last season. It peaked at 42% in September. There's a lot of concern about his durability as a starter last year. And, granted, the White Sox obviously had him throwing fewer innings towards the end of the season, but the highest strikeout rate he had in any month was in September, which could kind of negate some of those allegations, I guess. 9.6% of total pitches thrown by Garrett Crochet in 2024 were in the strike zone and swung and missed at. That was the highest rate among the 170 pitchers with at least 1,250 pitches thrown. It was also the highest rate among the 680 seasons by a left-hander since 2008, with at least 1,500 pitches thrown. Crochet joined Skubal, Tarek Skubal, and Chris Sale as the only qualified starters last year with a K rate, whiff rate, and chase rate all above 30%. So he obviously established himself as a breakout starter last year. Going to a new staff, is expected to be the ace of the Red Sox, and he is debuting on this list in my number 42 spot.
Very, very nice. We actually have two overlaps in this range. And yeah, so my number 45, I'm talking about the baseball player, not the human. But at my number 45, I have Marcell Ozuna, who is not on my list last year. At my number 44, Matt Olson, who is my number 22 last year. Matt Olson, he stays on this list basically because of every other year theory. And if you don't know the full details of that, check out the top 10 first basemen's video on the Above Replacement Radio YouTube channel. At my number 43, I have Carlos Correa, who's not on my list last year. For me, this year may answer a lot of questions / concerns I have about him. A healthy season with an OPS plus above 125 would move him up this list. Would make him, top 40 and beyond that. My number 42 is Willy Adames. who was not on my list last year.
3 spots off.
He ranks 38th among all players in F4 over the last 2 years, and I expect some offensive regression, but some defensive progression, and I kind of expect him to stay near the same spot. And then my number 41 is Garrett Crochet, who was not on my list last year.
One
Um,
spot off.
one spot off, yeah.
Nice.
So
Pretty good
we're
so far.
pretty good so far, especially for this deep in the list. You don't expect that many
Yeah.
similarities. Um, so I'll start off by talking about Marcelo Zuna because there was no list where we could talk about him since he's a DH. And I'll try not to act too excited about him when I mention his
It'd be
stats. But
monotone.
yeah,
He was a
monotone. I'll try to lower the excitement because I'm really just putting him because he has been a tremendous hitter. But I'm not really rooting for him to be a top 50 player, but I think he will, unfortunately. He has a 148 OPS plus in 1,280 plate appearances over the last 2 years. Out of 118 qualified hitters over the last 2 years, he ranks fifth in slugging and ninth in OPS. Overall, over the last 2 years, he ranks sixth in home runs, seventh in batting run value, and fifth in barrels. Also, among 266 hitters to see 2,500 plus pitches over the last 2 years, he ranks 24th in average exit velocity, 11th in barrel rate, 7th in expected slugging, and 7th in expected WOBA. And lastly, he has pulled 35% of his fly balls over the last 2 years, and that ranks 13th out of the 85 hitters to hit 200 plus fly balls in that span. So, he has been a tremendous hitter over the last 2 years. I expect that to continue at least to some level this year, which is why he gets on the list. But now on to Garrett Crochet, who is
I love the tone change. I was really hoping for that.
my Garrett Crochet, who's my number 41 pick. I'm really excited to have him on the Red Sox and have him on this list because I do think he deserves to be on it. And yeah, we both have him in the top 45. He was just a smidge outside the MLB Network's top 50. They had him at 56, which fair. You know what? That's fair. But I think he will be better than be better than the 56 best season, and I think it's a little bit of a risk not to have him in the top 50. And yeah, he's heading into his age 26 season. And last year, out of 81 pitchers with 140 plus innings pitched, he ranked fourth in expected ERA, third in FIP, first in strikeout rate, first in strikeout minus walk rate, first in xFIP, and first in SIERA. And out of 81 pitchers with 2,250 plus pitches thrown last year, Crochet had the third lowest expected batting average against and fourth lowest expected WOBA against. He was also in the 93rd percentile in chase rate and whiff rate. His differences in ERA and FIP can be explained by a 318 BABIP against, which was the sixth highest out of 81. He had a 3.58 ERA last year, but he was one of the more unlucky pitchers of guys who had his workload. So I would expect that to balance out. I wouldn't be surprised at an ERA below 3 this year. And despite only throwing 146 and two-thirds innings pitched last year, he ranked 28th among all players in F4 last year. And through July 6th, which was before his pitch count was limited last year, only 5 players in all of Major League Baseball had more F4 than Garrett Crochet. And also, those 5 players were Aaron Judge, Gunnar Henderson, Bobby Witt Jr., Shohei Ohtani, and Juan Soto. That was the level you had to be at to be ahead of Garrett Crochet in wins above replacement on Fangraphs before Garrett Crochet got his pitch count limited by the White Sox, which I'm not saying it was a bad decision. It's just that was his value before his pitch count was limited. And I don't think there's any reports of his pitch count being limited this year. So, over a full sample size, 41 could be 41 could end up being mild. This year, but since we've only seen it in 1 year, that's what's holding me back from moving him higher up the list. So, but all in all, both of us very, very optimistic about Garrett Crochet because of some really spectacular things that he showed us last year. So,
well, I don't know if you saw, he went on Section 10 this week and talked about how when he's in Boston, he wants to run himself into the ground with no regard for his future. That was the direct quote. So, in
wonderful.
terms of the pitch count stuff, I don't know.
Yeah, so okay, even better. So yeah, I feel pretty safe about putting him on this list for sure. So yeah, those are my 45 through 41. Who is your 40 through 36?
Yeah, so at number 40, this might be I would imagine you probably have him higher than this, probably quite higher than this, but I have Jackson Chorio as my 40. Obviously had a really solid last few months of the season last year. I want to see it over a full year is basically, what's keeping me from putting him higher on the list. But nonetheless, as a 21-year-old, he's the number 40 player on my list. It's still very good. At number 39, I have Ronald Acuna Jr., my number 2 player from last year. He's obviously going to miss at least the first month of the season, which will certainly drag his season-wide F4 down. Not that this list is like our top 50 F4 predictions. It's more, but that's definitely, if we had to go off of one stat, that would be the one that we go off of. But aside from that, he did also have a rough couple of months before tearing his ACL. The strikeout rate went back to where it was before 2023. But he's still Ronald Acuna Jr., so he is making my list in the number 39 spot. At number 38, I have Mike Trout, who was my number 9 last year. At number 37, like you, Chris, I have Ozuna from the Braves. The player, not the human being. And at number 36, I have Blake Snell. I had a lot of doubts about him coming off of his Cy Young season in 2023. I wasn't sure about the longevity of innings, the walk rate, but he proved to me last year that he can make it work, and also he can pitch deeper into games. I don't know what he can pitch past the 5th inning. That's okay. But he can make it work regardless of the flaws he has. So I'm all in now. He's my number 36. Now, getting into Mike Trout, obviously, unfortunately, it was another lost season where he didn't play a game after April 29th. But he's moving to right field this year. I'm hoping that can limit the injury potential. And I think it's important to remember what he did before he got injured, because he really was Mike Trout. He had a 405 expected WOBA in the short time that he played last year, which ranked 11th among the 125 hitters to see at least 400 pitches before April 29th, which was the last game that he played. 66% of pitches that Mike Trout saw last year were fastballs. He did not get a lot of off speed, did not get a lot of breaking stuff. It was the 3rd highest fastball rate among the aforementioned list of 125. And he had a 604 expected slugging against those fastballs, which ranked 13th highest. So I'm not really sure what the game plan was there. They decided to throw him all fastballs and he destroyed them. Except I do know what the game plan was, because he had a 666 expected slugging and a 19.6% whiff rate against breaking balls. His whiff rate ranked 23rd lowest among the 196 hitters to see at least 100 breaking balls before April 29th. And his expected slugging ranked 6th highest on that same list. So they threw him all those fastballs because he was crushing the breaking balls and also not swinging and missing at them. 78% of Mike Trout's swings over the last 2 years have come against pitches in the strike zone. The chase rate's obviously been very low, and that's the 11th highest rate among the 365 hitters with at least 750 swings in 2023. Obviously, you kind of have to proceed with caution with Mike Trout, because unfortunately, each of the last 5 full seasons has been, halted by injury to some degree, to varying degrees. But I can't help but if this is the year where he puts it back together and he's healthy and he puts together the Mike Trout season, I can't live with myself not putting him on the list. So he is in my number 38 spot. Now I'm going to get into Marcell Ozuna. Obviously, like Chris mentioned, I'm talking about the baseball player. If we were doing, the current Gianto 1000s of baseball human beings, Marcell Ozuna would not make the list. But we are not doing that. We are doing the baseball players, and he is my number 37. 25.7% of batted balls hit by Marcell Ozuna last year were hard hit and in the sweet spot, which was the 4th highest rate among the 170 hitters with at least 300 batted balls. Additionally, 12.3% of batted balls were barreled fly balls. His total batted balls were barreled fly balls. That was the 6th highest rate on that same list of 170. Additionally, 35.3% of his fly balls last year were pulled, the 2nd highest rate of his career behind 2020. And additionally, he's been one of the better hitters. He's coming off of back-to-back qualifying seasons with an OPS above 900. His 147 weighted runs created plus over the last 2 years ranks 9th among all qualifiers. I'm talking about Marcell Ozuna because I haven't had an opportunity to talk about him with the positional lists. We don't do a DH list, and that's exactly what he is. But you really can't deny who he is as a baseball player. Obviously, separating the art from the artist here. He's a terrible person, and you know, people say he shouldn't be in the league. I understand where those people are coming from, but he is in the league, and therefore I'm evaluating him on what he does on the field. So he is in my number 37 spot.
Right, right, absolutely. Yeah, I mean he's a tremendous hitter, like like we said.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, but uh, but yeah, now on to my 40 through 36. My number 40 is Jacob deGrom, who was not on my list last year. He's the best pitcher on the planet when he's on the mound, and he will be on the mound more this year. Manny Machado is taking my number 39 spot. He was my number 35 last year, so clearly, I don't think that much differently uh, than uh, th- than I did last year. And I expect more production from him than last year, given the fact that he isn't fresh off of elbow surgery. And I'm really glad that you did give that breakdown of him, because that's kind of exactly where I lie. He was part of the reason why his numbers were down last year was because he started off bad, probably because he was off elbow surgery and not fully healthy and not fully engaged, as you were saying. My number 38 is Dansby Swanson. My number 37 is Byron Buxton. And my number 36 is Mike Trout. And I have one full breakdown in this and then two half breakdowns. And my full breakdown is Dansby Swanson. Number 38, he was number 15 on my list last year. He ranks 22nd among all players in F-WAR and 24th in B-WAR over the last 2 years. And he ranked 32nd among all players in F-WAR last year. He ranks second among all fielders in outs above average over the last 2 years, and he ranks second among all fielders in defensive runs above average. He also ranks 32nd among all players in BSR over the last 2 years, while posting a 101 OPS plus. So basically, what that's telling us is he's about an average bat, and a top 2 defender in baseball, while also being a very productive base runner. So for me, that gets him on the list. I don't expect him to be more than an average hitter, but an average hitter who is the best defensive shortstop in baseball deserves to be on this list, in my opinion. MLB Network had him at number 93. And yeah, I expect him to be a bit better than the number 93 among all baseball players this year, just based on all the tools he has and what he's shown us over these last 3 years. So yeah, and now on to my half breakdowns. Number 37, I have Byron Buxton. Out of 241 hitters with 350 plus plate appearances last year, he ranked 12th in slugging and 18th in OPS. He also posted a +4 fielding run value as a center fielder. However, why he's not higher is he has not played more than 102 games since 2017. And then I have Mike Trout at number 36. He was my number 33 last year. By the way, I don't know if I mentioned Buxton was not on my list last year, and Dansby Swanson was number 15 last year. Mike Trout was number 33 for me last year. He's number 36 this year, and he's back to back with Buxton very intentionally. Over the last 3 years, among 251 hitters with 900 plus plate appearances, Trout ranks 4th in OPS. And over the last 2 years, among 345 hitters with 450 plate appearances, Trout ranks 18th in OPS. He's at least top 20 on a rate basis, but we don't know how much we will see him on the field. So that's why he's brought down to number 36. And I don't want to be that guy, because it's not something I really rooted for. But I was 1 year early on putting Trout's health against him, because MLB Network also brought him down their list. He was number 39 on their list, and he was number 2012, or he was number 12 in 2024. So 1 year early, but I'm hoping to see a full season out of him, and I'm hoping to bring him up the list next year, as I'm sure you are as well. So yeah, that's my 40 through 36. Let's reveal your 35 through 31.
Yeah. Where did you have Trout again?
This year we're
Yeah.
36.
Okay, so we're 2 spots off. All
Yeah.
right. Yeah, so my number 35, I have Rafael Devers, who I put as my number 39 player last year. He was banged up for a lot of the year. Who knows where he's going to be positionally. He might be a guy. I mean, he has stated that he wants to be a third. We'll see what happens there. That's, a big storyline that we haven't gotten into, but regardless, he's a fantastic hitter. I think he will continue to hit the way that he does. If he stays healthy, I think he might be even better. He is moving slightly on my list, 4 spots to be exact. At number 34, I have Dansby Swanson. You and I are 4 spots off on him. I had him at my number 27 spot last year. I think, no matter which way you slice it, he's a top 92 player in baseball. And I think pretty much anyone could admit that. In fact, we both had him as top 38 players. At number 33, making his debut on the list, I have Riley Green from the Detroit Tigers. At number 32, I have Bryce Harper. Obviously, he's continued to be Bryce Harper. The transition to first has gone pretty nicely and, should be another solid season out of him. And at number 31, I have Chris Sale, the reigning National League Cy Young Award winner. It was an excellent breakout season from him last year. So now we get into Dansby Swanson. I'm also doing a breakdown on him because it felt necessary. Swanson's 59 outs above average since 2022 are the most among all fielders. He has been the best fielder in the last 3 seasons and has been consistently doing it in that span. It's not like he had one great season and one not as great and it leveled out. No, he's had pretty consistent around 20 outs above average each of the last 3 years. His 9.2 F4 over the last 2 seasons ranked tied for 19th among all position players. That's given the good defense, the solid base running, and the relatively league average offense to above the league average offense. But also, when he hits the ball, he's capable of doing some damage. Dansby Swanson barreled 29.7% of his fly balls last year, which was the third highest rate for him in his career. And Dansby made some in-season adjustments last year that paid off. His ground ball rate went from 52.7% from March through June to 47.4% from July through September, a 5% decrease. His weighted runs created plus went from 87 to 110 over that time. I fully believe that as long as he stays on the field, which he's done a very good job of over the last few seasons, he is undeniably going to be on this list again next year. I have not seen a reason to not believe it yet. And he's in my number 34 spot. In my number 33 spot, just ahead of him, is Riley Green for the Detroit Tigers. You and I were both pretty high on him last year, and it turned out to pay off. He joined Aaron Judge, Juan Soto, and Kyle Schwarber as the only qualifying hitters to rank in the 85th percentile or higher in average bat speed, barrel rate, and chase rate. So that's, a very diverse skill set of offense, and Riley Green joined 3 elite hitters as the only 4 to do it last year in qualifying. Riley Green's slugging percentage in the heart of the strike zone, the pitches that are most hittable, increased by 230 points between 2023 and 2024. His run value per 100 in that zone went from negative 2.6 to 1.5, which is a staggering difference. So one big improvement he made last year was hitting the pitches that he should hit, and it paid off. His 135 weighted runs created plus last year ranked 7th among all qualifying outfielders. And last but not least, his average exit velocity against four-seamers went from 89.9 miles per hour in 2023 to 93.1 miles per hour in 2024, a near 4 mile per hour increase on average exit velocity against the pitch that you see the most of as a major leaguer. His barrel rate against four-seamers went from 9.4% to 18%. It nearly doubled. And that 18% was the 11th highest among the 128 hitters with at least 100 batted balls against four-seamers. So I'm very excited to see what Riley Green's going to do in a season where he's kind of expected to be the leader of the Detroit Tigers offense. He proved it last year. It's, time to, really, further establish that this year as the guy that's expected to be the guy. He is my number 33 on this list.
Yeah, we have a couple overlaps in this range, and we have a complete
Nice.
hit on one of them. My number 35 is Riley Green. He was not on my list last year. He's heading into his age 24 season and has a 127 OPS plus and 4.2 F4 per 650 plate appearances over the last 2 years, and I could easily see him moving up this list next year. But we're welcoming him in at the 35 spot this year. You are welcoming him at the number 33 spot this year. My number 34 is Patrick Bailey, who was not on my list last year. My number 33 is Austin Riley, who was my number 16 last year. My number 32 is Cole Reagans, who was not on my list last year. And my number 31, like you, is Chris Sale,
Nice.
who was not on my list last year. And he was arguably the most dominant pitcher in baseball last year. But I would rank him higher with a better track record of health and more successful seasons this particular decade. 2020, he's been around the league a while, but this was his first good season of the 2020s. But I have 3 breakdowns in this one, so bear with me.
Oh boy.
But it's because I only had one breakdown from 50 through 46. So I wanted to emphasize some people in this one. And I have a lot to say about Patrick Bailey, who's my number 34. He ranks 39th among all players in F4 since his MLB debut in 2023, and that is despite significantly underperforming expected metrics. And the different, I had him at the number 3 catcher spot. You had him at number 4, and I think the main difference was I had more belief that he would meet his expected metrics this year. So I'm going to go over some of the lack of luck that he has had as of late, or throughout his career, actually. Among the 256 hitters with 2,500 plus pitches seen over the last 2 years, he is the 10th unluckiest difference in batting average and expected batting average, second unluckiest difference in slugging and expected slugging, and the unluckiest difference in WOBA and expected WOBA. Although some of that has to do with pulling fly balls at a below average rate, it is not completely explained by that. Out of 189 hitters to hit 400 plus combined ground balls, pop-ups, and line drives, Bailey has the 8th unluckiest difference in WOBA and expected WOBA and 13th unluckiest difference in slugging and expected slugging. And those don't involve any fly balls, or at least any competitive fly balls. And then along with that, the reason why he gets on this list is he leads all players in defensive run value over the last 2 years. I talked earlier about how Dansby Swanson being an average hitter and the best defensive shortstop in baseball gets him to be number 38. With Bailey, me seeing him become an average hitter while being the best defensive player in baseball gets him to be number 34. And I say an average hitter because his expected WOBA was in the 52nd percentile last year, and his expected slugging was in the 49th percentile last year. If I didn't see, some offensive progression from him this year, I probably wouldn't have him as high as 34, but I do. So I'm kind of jumping the gun on Patrick Bailey. So that's why I have him at number 34. Moving on to Austin Riley. My number 16 from last year, my number 33 this year. We missed the final 38 games of last year with a broken hand after getting hit by a pitch, but he put up 5 F4 each of the 3 years before that. And then also, last year wasn't that much of a step back under the surface. His WOBA went down 25 points from 2023 to 2024, but his expected WOBA only went down 4 points. His slugging went down 55 points, but his expected slugging only went down 11. And then that is also with his pulled fly ball rate actually going up 0.1 percentage points and his average exit velocity and barrel rate increasing. So with the pulled fly ball rate specifically, a lot of times discrepancies in actual numbers and expected numbers can be explained by lower pulled fly ball rates. But with Riley, his went up even if it was marginal. The point is it didn't go down or didn't go down significantly. So I expect him to get back to that 2021 to 2023 production. So he is at my 33. And then with Cole Reagans, since being acquired by the Royals in July of 2023, he has a flat 3 ERA and 2.85 FIP in 258 innings pitched. Among 40 qualified starters in that span, Reagan's ERA ranks 4th, and FIP, strikeout rate, and home runs per 9 all rank 2nd. He also ranks 21st among all players in F4 in that span, which, goes over the course of a year and a half. So, being top 25 among all players over a year and a half, that is very, very impressive. That's why I have Cole Reagans at number 32 after not having him on my list last year. So yeah, now on to 30. Yeah, now onto the final 5, 30 through 26.
Are we really on the final 5? Yeah, we really are. That went
Yeah.
quick. Wow. All right. At number 30, I have Jacob deGrom. Like you pretty much said everything that I needed to say when he's on the mound. He's one of the best. He would be higher on this list if, I had more faith in his health. We are going to have to wait and see on that. At number 29, perhaps a hot take. He was my number 6 last year. I have Freddie Freeman at my number 29 spot. At number 28, I have Brent Rooker. Number 27, I have Jackson Merrill. Obviously, it was a terrific breakout season for him. I would like to see an increase in walk rate. I would like to see a more consistent pull rate. if he does it again, I'm sure he will easily shoot up the list next year. And at number 26, I have Julio Rodriguez. He was my number 12 last year. I believe he's still capable of being a top 10 player in the league, or at least top 12, since that's where I had him last year. Obviously, it was a down year for him last year, but I still, believe that he's a very talented player. He is my number 26. So, talking about Freddie Freeman, let's talk about the good, because I do have to justify why he's at my number 29. MLB Network had him in their top 10. So, there's definitely some explaining to do there. Let's talk about the good stuff, though. He's Freddie Freeman. Freddie Freeman's 42.9% sweet spot rate since 2015 leads the 910 hitters with at least 250 batted balls in the StatCast era. And this might not sound shocking to anyone, but Freddie Freeman has more than 250 batted balls in the StatCast era. In fact, it's over 4,000. So on a pure rate stat, you can move the total pitch parameter all the way down to 250 batted balls. And with over 4,000, Freddie Freeman's at first in sweet spot rate over the last 10 seasons. That's pretty remarkable. Freddie Freeman also pulled 25% of his fly balls last year, which was actually a career high for him in a full season. Only in 2020 did he have a higher one, and he happened to be very good that year. But let's talk about why he's at my number 29. Obviously, it was a down year for him. He battled some injuries, and obviously there was something in his personal life that he had to deal with, and I have no doubt that played a role. But he was actually much worse than 29th in overall F4 last year, so I am keeping him a lot. I do have a lot of faith that, he, despite putting him far down this list from last year, I think that he will be better than he was last year. That being said, Freeman barreled 22.9% of his fly balls last year, which was the second lowest rate for him throughout the StatCast era. Additionally, he struggled to hit fastballs compared to his normal standard. He had a minus 0.2 run value per 100 against all fastballs last year, which was his lowest in a season since his rookie year in 2010. He had been a above average run value per 100 hitter against all fastballs in every year since 2011, but that did not come to pass in 2024. So I did have to put Freddie Freeman down my list a bit. I know it sounds like a hot take. I do hope, of course I'm rooting for him, always rooting for Freddie Freeman. But 29 was where I landed him this year. Now I'm talking about Brent Rooker, who I, like Marcell Ozuna, did not get a chance to talk about in the positional lists. He's in my number 28 spot. He upped his pull rate on fly balls. He upped his pull rate in general from 35.3% in 2023 to 42.6% in 2024. The pull rate on fly balls also went from 23.9% to 32%, nearly an 8% increase. His 2.6 run value per 100 against all fastballs last year ranked third highest among the 159 hitters with at least 1,000 total fastballs seen last year. So I have to make a quick adjustment myself here. Rooker's K rate went from 34.7% in March through June to 23.8% in July through September. So even he made a midseason adjustment that made him even better. The strikeout rate actually went down as the season went on. And lastly, Brent Rooker joined Aaron Judge and Cal Raleigh last year as the only qualifying hitters with a higher fly ball rate than ground ball rate and a barrel rate above 15%. He was a phenomenal hitter last year. I'm excited to see what the transition to a minor league ballpark looks like for him. And, he is my number 28.
Yeah, that's definitely if Brent Rooker does have a top 30 this year, that's definitely one to brag about.
Yeah.
Because I'm MLB Network. I don't know if MLB Network had him in the top 50, but still I don't think they had him top 30. So that is definitely a guy you're sticking by, and I
Yes.
could definitely see it working out, especially in that new ballpark. That's probably one of the more exciting things I'm looking forward to with that minor league ballpark, is seeing what Brent Rooker and Lawrence Butler do in it. It'll be fun. But yeah, my 30 through 26. My number 30 is Matt Chapman, who's not on my list last year. He ranks 33rd among all players in F4 over the last 2 years, and he's coming off his best season in 5 years. So more of that success in the last 2 years has come recently. And then my number 29 is Marcus Semien, who I had number 17 last year. My number 28 is Ronald Acuna Jr., who I had at number 2 last year, and who he moves down the list due to starting the year on the injured list, and also his strikeout rate returning to normal last year. So, to expect him to, first of all, missing, probably a month of the year, that means your production is probably going to be outside the top 25 put up unless he puts up 2023 rate numbers. And then I don't think he's going to be putting up 2023 rate numbers because his strikeout rate returned to kind of his career average,
Please, can you just return to the Zoom screen real quick? Keep going though.
which was a big factor in what made him so successful and put his OPS over 1,000 in 2023, and put his average, in the 330s. I'm pretty sure. I don't think he's going to get back to that. So him starting the year on the IL and also his strikeout rate being kind of normal, I expect a really good season from him, but not necessarily that MVP level this year. And then my number 27 is Freddie Freeman, who was my number 4 last year. He ranked 44th among all players in F4 last year and had career lows in all expected numbers and barrel rate, and also had a 6-year low in average exit velocity as a 34-year-old. So, this is kind of the time when guys' numbers do trend down. So that's part of the reason why I dragged him outside the top 25, unfortunately. And then my number 26 is William Contreras, who was my number 44 last year. One of the highlights of the Gianta 50 last year.
Yes.
But but my but going into my number 29 first, Marcus Semien, as I mentioned, my number 17 from last year. And considering some of the drop-offs, I do understand why guys would, bring him down more than 12 spots this year. But there's some things I'm somewhat optimistic about. First of all, he ranks 14th among all players in F4 and 12th among all players in B War over the last 2 years. And he ranks 3rd among all fielders in outs above average over the last 2 years. And his OPS plus did go from 126 to 100 from 2023 to 2024. But that was largely due to a lack of luck. His BABIP went down 41 points and was 33 points below his career average. He underperformed his expected metrics despite hitting more pulled fly balls than anyone in baseball last year. And he also has the most pulled fly balls in baseball over the last 2 years. So I expect that offense to get back above average, significantly above average, at least 110, 115. And, that defense has been elite, and I expect it to still remain at the very least, pretty good this upcoming year. So some improvements in offense and, some maintenance in his defense and base running would make some top 30 for me. And then my number 26 is William Contreras. And I literally said last year, if he has another 5-win season, and it was implied that it was according to F4, if he has another 5-win season, I'll have to put him top 30. So that's what I'm doing. I'm putting him top 30, because he backed his stuff up from 2023.
5.4.
Yeah, 5.4 F4. He ranked 15th among all players in F4 last year, and he ranks 10th over the last 2 years. He's had at least a 53% ground ball rate each of the last 3 years, but it hasn't stopped him from putting up at least a 124 OPS plus each of those 3 years. A complaint about a reason why I didn't have him above 44 last year is because I expected offensive regression because he had some luck on his ground balls. But it seems like in some ways that luck is sort of reliable, and the fact that he hits so many ground balls has not been that big of a problem. Sure, I'm sure he could have more offense production if he decreases that ground ball rate, but still, even if he doesn't, he's still a really, really good hitter. And then along with that, he also has +7 StatCast defensive run value and +11 defensive runs saved over the last 2 years. So he's been a solid backstop to go along with his really, really, really good hitting. He's probably the best hitting catcher in baseball. So that certainly has its value, and he's not a detriment behind the plate either. So he earns my number 26 spot this year, and maybe if he continues things, even more, he'll get top 20 next year. So we'll see about the advancement of William Contreras. But yeah, that's everybody
Yes, it
for this
is.
episode. Um, I don't know. Do we want to fully reveal
I say we go 50 through one.
50 through 26?
Okay, you want to do it? All right. Navigate my computer here because I have a cat sitting on my laptop and cannot see where I can get to my list. Uh, like he's literally blocking the button that would get me to the list, so
That's
I can't get to it right now.
cat obstruction.
Yeah.
That
I
is
don't know if
brutal.
you'll probably see this in post, but during the entire time you were monologuing, or not during the entire time, but during a portion of it, he was looking up at the laptop camera, so I turned it down to face him. I got it. All right. Number 50, Lawrence Butler. Number 49, Patrick Bailey. Number 48, Adley Rutschman. Number 47, Marcus Semien. Number 46, Stephen Kwan. Number 45, Willie Adames. Number 44, Manny Machado. Number 43, Cole Reagans. Number 42, Garrett Crochet. Number 41, Austin Riley. Number 40, Jackson Chorio. Number 39, Ronald Acuna Jr. Number 38, Mike Trout. Number 37, Marcelo Zuna. Number 36, Blake Snell. Number 35, Rafael Devers. Number 34, Dansby Swanson. Number 33, Riley Green. Number 32, Bryce Harper. Number 31, Chris Sale. Number 30, Jacob DeGrom. Number 29, Freddie Freeman. Number 28, Brent Rooker. Number 27, Jackson Merrill. And number 26, Julio Rodriguez.
Yeah, my number 50, Yoshinobu Yamamoto. My number 49 is Corbin Burns. Number 48, Alex Bregman. Number 47, Adley Rutschman. Number 46, Logan Webb. Number 45, Marcelo Zuna. Number 44, Matt Olson. Number 43, Carlos Correa. Number 42, Willie Adames. Number 41, Garrett Crochet. Number 40, Jacob DeGrom. Number 39, Manny Machado. Number 38, Dansby Swanson. Number 37, Byron Buxton. Number 36, Mike Trout. Number 35, Riley Green. Number, oh, page is being cut off here. Number 34, Patrick Bailey. Number 33, Austin Riley. Number 32, Cole Reagans. Number 31, Chris Sale. Number 30, Matt Chapman. Number 29, Marcus Semien. Number 28, Ronald Acuna Jr. Number 27, Freddie Freeman. And number 26, William Contreras. I'll add, and I'm sure you have some honorable mentions as well. And I think it's appropriate to reveal them now because anyone who's fringe isn't probably going to be top 25 for the most part,
Sure.
or who would be widely considered fringe. So I had 57 players that I believe deserve strong consideration for this list. So I'll list them out in, I guess, order of how I had them out. My first guy off the list was Isaac Paredes because I have full belief that he will get back to um, the he will get back to the offense production he had with the Rays, considering the ballpark change for him. If you want to get more context on that, I would recommend you go to the top 10 third baseman in baseball for 2025 because there were some really staggering numbers on his home road splits when he was with the Cubs last year, and it really did hinder his overall 2024 results. So Isaac Paredes is my number 51, and then Garrett Cole, Trey Turner, Rafael Devers, Stephen Kwan, Jose Altuve, and Nico Horner. I'll put
Okay. I also
considered.
don't have Nico Horner. I thought I was doing him so dirty, but I'm glad you're there with me.
Yeah, yeah. Who are some other guys you were
Yeah.
deeply considering?
So my first guy off the list was Trey Turner. I originally had him in my number 50 spot, but I moved him off to make room for Lawrence Butler. Yeah, feel bad. I wanted to have all 10 of my top 10 shortstops, but I ended up putting Trey Turner as my 51. Jazz Chisholm was actually a very close miss for me. I like that he pulled 53% of his fly balls last year as a Yankee. I think if that continues, he'll probably make the list next year. Christian Walker was a close miss for me. Coming to the Astros this year. Tyler Glasnow and Michael King were both close misses for me, as well as was Eugenio Suarez, who is a guy that I'm I guess higher on than most this year, as well as Jose Altuve. He's also a close miss. Nico Horner, Tyler Fitzgerald, among others.
Yeah, yeah. Where did you have Cole Reagans? I might have missed it.
43.
43. Okay. Um, yeah. I for some reason, I think I forgot when you said it, and I was like, did he leave him completely off the list? But
No, no, that would be
I'm glad
insane.
I'm glad he's there.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, this was a fun one. Top 50s is it's the culmination of all the
Yes.
things we researched. So glad we could do it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about you, but I go through like rough drafts.
Yeah.
Like the first draft does not nearly look the same as the final draft. There are a lot of decisions that get made throughout this process.
Yeah, oftentimes I'll start like taking notes on someone and move them up or down depending on what those notes say. Um, yeah, I'm looking at I'm looking at MLB Network's list and see what overlaps we had 50 through 26. Brent Rooker was 46 for them. Marcelo Zuna was 47 for them. Logan Wove was 50 for them. I had him 46. Um, Willie Adames, we were all pretty much in line on. Willie Adames was 41 for them. And I I had him at 42. I think you had him at 44.
Willie Adames I had at 45.
45.
Yeah.
So yeah, all in the 41 through 45 range. Cole Reagans was 43 for them. So
Oh, nice. They're with me.
exactly in line with you. And then Austin Riley, I am a match with them on. Austin Riley is number 33 for them. Blake Snell is number 36 for them.
That's what I had.
That's what you had. Mike Trout was 39 for them. Jackson Troy was 40 for them. I think you
Oh,
had.
I'm in line with them on him too.
Yeah. And where's 30 through 26? They had William Contreras number 28. I had him 26. But yeah, I'm sure there's plenty of discrepancies, but I guess we could focus on some of the similarities that we have. But yeah, I'm excited to go through 25 through 1, see where we rank some of these guys. You could argue that's a little bit more crucial getting those right.
Yeah. I mean, I can't wait to laugh at their Dansby Swanson 93.
Yeah, no. I mean, I had him 15 last year. You had him at 27, and MLB Network had him 67, and he ranked
We were
32nd.
right.
He ranked 32nd of among all players in F4 last year. So we were definitely the closest on him there.
Yeah, I was 5 spots off.
Yeah, and I guess I think B War he was like 50th. So, but I don't know. I don't use that as much. And I would think with Swanson it would benefit a guy like him, but I guess not. Um, but yeah, I think that does it for this installment of Above Replacement Radio. And we hope you enjoyed this one. If you were listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and want to watch the conversation as it happens, go to the YouTube channel. It is called Above Replacement Radio. Check out the guest playlists. We've had some cool guests on. Most recently, Anthony Castrovins of MLB.com. We had a very good conversation about lots of things, but including the ABS system, which is very significant in baseball right now. And he's, pretty on top of that. So, feel free to listen for that. We've also had Matt Brash, who's, making his return to the mound this year for the Mariners after Tommy John surgery. So if you want to hear about that journey for him, check out that interview. And we have plenty others: Jeff Passan, Foolish Bailey, Sarah Langs, Mike Petriello, Chris Rose, among others. So check out the guest playlist. Also check out the 2025 positional rankings list. If there's a player that we mentioned on this list that we didn't get a full breakdown and you wish you got a full breakdown out of that player, go to the positional rankings list. For example, like I didn't really do much highlighting of Riley Green. If you want to hear my analysis of Riley Green, go to the top 10 left fielders list. And yeah, that does it for, and if you want to follow us on social media, follow me on Twitter at Chris_Deonta, follow Daniel on both Twitter and Instagram at Daniel_Curran, and follow the show Instagram at Above Replacement Radio for all the show needs. We hope you enjoyed this one, and we hope to see you next time, where we will be previewing the American League West and revealing our top 25 players in baseball. We will see you then.
This conversation is over.
Is over.